Dear viewers, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the second episode of this live exclusive season of Ahkam SOS, live from the holy city of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein and his beloved brother Abil Fadl al-Abbas. And as you all know, the show is dedicated to discuss Islamic do's and don'ts and to be answering all of your questions, inshallah. You can send in your questions via WhatsApp or YouTube comments, or you can give us a call via the numbers presented to you on the show. But before we get into the show, I'm your host, Musa Ali, and I would like to introduce our honorable guest, Sheikh Ali Maash. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Alaikum assalam.
How are you doing, Sheikhna?
Alhamdulillah.
How's Ramadan here in Karbala?
Alhamdulillah, taqabbalallahu siyamakum.
Allah yahfazkum, inshallah. Our questions have come in early, and the first question is, can you define the meaning of the month of Ramadan?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين
اللهم صل
ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى أخيك أبي فضل العباس ورحمة الله وبركاته. The meaning of the month of Ramadan, the word Ramadan roots back to the word Ramadah or Ramdah. And that means strong sunshine on the pebbles and on the sand.
Wow.
And that's what we have in some of the maqatil or mentions about the land of Karbala, Ramda Karbala, because of the strong sunshine on that land in which those brave men of Islam sacrificed on this land when it was so hot. And of course, other meanings that it points towards the name of Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's why we have in some narrations that don't say Ramadan, say Shahr Ramadan, as a sign of respect to this name. And one of the main functions of this holy month is that it melts down and burns away the sins.
Allah Akbar.
So by fasting, by performing all these ibadat, it eventually burns away and melts the sins. And that's why we await this month every year to be able to remove and, let's say, wipe all our sins and try to work on ourselves, self-building, purifying and so forth, to reach that stage of perfection and taqwa and piety, inshallah.
Inshallah. We have some questions from the previous night. We didn't get to ask them. We have a question from WhatsApp. It says, are jewelry and rings amongst the exceptions in Sharia? In other words, is it permissible to wear in front of non-maharam men?
The Holy Quran mentions, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنْ, and do not reveal your beauty. If these jewelry are known to be as zina and beauty, of course, they're forbidden to be worn and used for the sisters, for the female. Any type of zina and beautification is not permissible for the sisters in Islam.
And in regards to men, what specifically type of jewelry isn't permissible for
men? Of course, they're not allowed to wear gold. The gold is not allowed for men to wear it. Yes, they can do so with silver and other types of let's say stones and so forth. But for the gold, they're not allowed to wear it. But for the ladies, of course, they are allowed.
The second question is, what are the methods used to find out which day is the first of the month of Ramadan?
Initially, we have a narration which says, Sum lil-ru'ya waftar lil-ru'ya, that fast by sighting the moon and break your fast or open your fast on the day of Eid by sighting the moon again. So in those days they used to do so with the naked eye, natural look at the crescent and the moon, and they would define the first day of the Eid or first day of the month of Ramadan. Now they've been using telescopes and so forth. Of course, some ulama would not accept this type of sighting. It's not what the Zahir al-Hadith is in Ruwaya, that Sum lil-Ru'ya is to look with the naked eye. Ala kull hal, discussion between the ulama. In terms of defining the day of the first day of the month of Ramadan, it's number one, you either see yourself, so you have some kind of knowledge in terms of the the shape and the width of the hilal, of the crescent, the position in the sky, for example. You have all that knowledge. So when you see it, yes, you can actually start fasting from next day. Or as we do today, in this day and age, we rely on the ulama and the maraja houses, in which they would announce that tomorrow is the first day of the month of Ramadan and Eid as well. So we would go back to the ulama to define the first day of the month of Ramadan.
We have another question from WhatsApp. It says, if an organ of an atheist is transplanted in a Muslim's body, would it be considered ritually pure, tahir, after the transplant as a part of the Muslim's body?
You see, any transplant into a Muslim's body from a non-Muslim body becomes part of that body. The blood, the organs, as you mentioned, they all become part of that body. Khalas, you don't really mention it. Of course, the najasa happens when you take out the organ and it's stained with blood. Blood is najis, be it from Muslim or non-Muslim. But anyhow, it becomes part of that Muslim body, yes.
Okay. We have another question. It says, why is that fasting has been prescribed for Muslims in general, only for Muslims?
In the Holy Quran, we have this famous ayah recited every year in this holy month. In Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 183, that Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam, kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. That all you believe, observing fast has been prescribed upon you as it was prescribed before you as well, other nations before. But the main point here, or the wisdom, the cause behind this wajib act, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you become pious. That's the whole idea and the wisdom and the reason behind fasting, that we try to seek and gain more taqwa and righteousness. Because we've missed this for the past 11 months. Busy in our business, work, daily chores, trying to make more money, spend more time with family members, holidays, and so forth. But when it comes to this holy month, everything stops from normality. So, best season to gain more taqwa and God-fearing, because taqwa means to practice the wajib and to refrain the haram. That's taqwa, basically. So that's why we have to fast in this holy month, at least to gain this important feature, and that's to be muttaqi, inshallah.
Inshallah. We have another question from WhatsApp. It says, I am a married woman and my husband is from another sect. He requests that I break my fast and have iftar in accordance to his maghrib sunset, which is usually 15 minutes before our maghrib time. Can I break my fast with him?
You see, the majority of the ulama of the Shia, of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, have mentioned that the Shar'i Maghrib is just a few minutes after the sunset and not the sunset. وَأَتِمُّ الصِّيَامِ إِلَى اللَّيْلِ, night. Sunset is not night. It's just sunset. You still can see the sky, blue sky. Still, it's not a complete night.
But the sun just has set.
Just set, yeah, exactly. So أَتِمُّ الصِّيَامِ إِلَى اللَّيْلِ has to be night time. So about, mentioned 15-20 minutes after the sunset, one is allowed to break or to open their fast. So this lady needs to basically wait and open her fast in the Maghrib Shar'i time, as we have. She's not allowed to break it, or the fast earlier than that. Unless there's issues of taqiyya, that's of course a different subject in terms of fear of life-threatening situation and so forth. That's a different story. But she needs to observe the fast according to the Shia of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question from WhatsApp. Says, is it permissible to use gold and silver cufflinks, silver cufflinks, pins and tie pins as a form of beautification?
You see, if it's for the sisters, as I've said before, any type of beautification is not allowed. وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ. So they have to refrain from any type of wearing, let's say, makeup or rings and so forth, gold or non-gold as well. that makes it beautification in somehow. They have to avoid it. For the men, as I've said, gold is haram. Other than that, this is allowed.
Okay, so thank you very much. We have a question. It says, what ahadith do we have regarding fasting, and specifically in reference to fasting to allow us to feel the hunger of the poor?
Various narrations mentioned in the books of the hadith by Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, by the authority Imam Sadiq salamullah alayh, in this hadith about fasting. Again, the Imam gives the wisdom, the reason for fasting. He says, salamullah alayh, إنما فرض الله الصيام ليستوي به الغني والفقير. That Allah made fasting obligatory so that the rich and the poor are made equal. Similar to the Hajj. When you go to Hajj, in Tawaf, in Sa'i, in Mina, in Rami, you'll be standing beside a millionaire maybe, and you never know that person.
They're all dressed the same. They're all wearing
just
the same.
Just 2 pieces of cloth, nothing else. 2 towels, in other words, nothing else. So all these ibadat, or the reason for these types of rituals, is that to bring us close to Allah Azza wa Jal and to be equal with other fellow mankind. You know, we have to try to have that feeling that there's no classifications, that the rich is rich. You can't touch them, you can't reach them, and the poor
they don't have
remains in the streets.
Specific type of dress.
Exactly.
It's all just those 2 pieces of cloth.
So that's one part of the hadith. Then he says, Salamullah alayhi, وَذَلِكَ أَنَّ الْغَنِي لَمْ يَكُنْ لِيَجْدَ مَسَّ الْجُوعِ فَيَرْحَمَ الْفَقِيرِ لأن الغني كلما أراد شيئا قدر عليه. That the rich would never experience the feeling of hunger that would make them have mercy on the poor. For whenever the rich desire something, they are able to acquire it. In other words, they would feel the hunger of a poor individual who maybe sleeps many nights without even lunch or dinner. So that's one of the wisdoms of fasting, that we remember those who are in need, in poverty, who have no, any kind of access to the correct food and drink and nutrition and so forth, that we try to help in this holy month, to be able to buy something for them, food baskets, as we have in this channel, for example, charity organizations, they provide food baskets and so forth. We try to remember those deprived individuals in the society, and we try to help. And may Allah gives us the opportunity for that. I've got more hadith. You can ask the next one if you want.
Inshallah. We have another question via WhatsApp. So it says, what is the ruling on buying and playing lottery tickets and other such games of chance?
You see, the ulama mentioned that if this lottery ticket is based on basically, the objective is to raise money for the charity purposes, as we have in the UK. The National Lottery, very famous for the past 20-30 years, that you would buy a ticket, and then portion of that money is going to building new hospitals, schools, orphanage, and so forth. In this case, many of the ulama would allow this type of lottery with the intention, of course, paying to the charity and so forth. The details of the how you would buy this lottery. If it's to do with gambling, of course, the gambling is haram. It's not allowed. And any play of chance and any games of that involves gambling and so forth would be forbidden as well.
Sheikh, just as a reference to this question, the money that is won from the lottery, is it subjected to khums?
Of course, inshallah, when somebody wins, of course, they have to go back to the ulama.
Inshallah.
If there's a khums, of course, it needs to be paid as a result. I go back to the hadith of the siyam. Another hadith or sermon from Fatima Zahra Salamullah alayha in her khutbah al-Fadakiyya, famous khutbah, she mentions part of in her khutbah about the reason and the wisdom of the ibadat. Why do we have to worship, specific worship, act and amal? So she mentions about the siyam, that she says Salamullahi alayha, فَجَعَلَ اللَّهُ الصِّيَامِ تَثْبِيتًا لِلْإِخْلَاصِ. And fasting was made wajib so that the sincerity is established. In other words, you would establish the sincerity and ikhlas in your inner self. Because you see, interesting about fasting that if you want to do riyah and show off, in any ibadah you can do so. In Hajj, you can show off. You can cry in tawaf. You know, these things were done by the munafiqeen in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, that they used to show off the worship, ibadah, come and pray behind the Prophet ﷺ, but they
just for the people to say that
he's a Muslim,
fasted,
yes,
he prayed,
exactly, he's a mu'min individual. So in salah, in Hajj, other rituals, you can actually show off. But when it comes to fasting, there's no room for showing off, because it's something between yourself. You can say, I'm fasting, and you go in the next minute and drink water or eat something, and nobody knows about it. So it's difficult to basically show off in fasting. That's why we fast, so that our sincerity and ikhlas would be strengthened more and stronger than before. So this is one of the, again, wisdoms of fasting. Another hadith, which is in Risat al-Huquq by Imam As-Sajjad alayhi salam, he says the haqq as-sawm, the right of fasting that we observe in this holy month. He says, Salamullah alayhi, وَأَمَّا حَقُّ الصَّوْمِ فَأَن تَعْلَمَ أَنَّهُ حِجَابٌ ضَرَبَهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى لِسَانِكَ وَسَمْعَكَ وَبَصَرِكَ وَفَرْجَكَ وَبَطْنَكَ لِيَسْتُرَكَ بِهِ مِنَ النَّارِ. Know that the right of fasting is that Allah Azza wa Jal, He has made a covering, a shield upon your tongue, your hearing, your sight, your private parts, and your stomach, to protect you from the fire. The idea of fasting is to make sure that if somebody used to commit, na'udhu billah, sins with any of these organs, he stops it in this holy month. To protect him from the acts of vice and wrongdoings and so forth. لذلك, the haqq is there to protect ones from, and you can see all the organs are involved in fasting. It's not just the mouth and the stomach. We have another hadith with this regard that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentions, إذا صمت فليصم سمعك وبصرك وجلدك, that when you fast, make sure that your hearing fasts, your skin fasts, your sight fasts, and other organs also to fast. ولا يكن يوم صومك كيوم فطرك, and make sure the day in which you're fasting wouldn't be the same as other days outside the month of Ramadan, that you can do whatever you want. Make sure everything in your body fasts, all the organs should fast.
Kind of for you to hold back on what you used to do.
Exactly.
Exactly. We have a question from YouTube. It says, before we ask the questions, brothers and sisters, I just want to remind you that you can send in the questions via WhatsApp or YouTube, as well as you can give us a call if you would like via the numbers presented to you on the show, or on the screen, sorry. Thank you very much. We have a question from YouTube. It says, can we donate blood in Ramadan?
Donating blood wouldn't break the fast. One can do so. Of course, we have to try to avoid any means of weakening our body in terms of fasting. So we try to avoid if we can in the daytime of the month of Ramadan.
Okay. We have another question from WhatsApp. It says, is it permissible for a boy of 15 years to have a girlfriend? And we face that all around the world, not just in the West.
Exactly. You see, we have a great Sharia in Islam, in which would allow us to do something which is beneficial for us and to avoid something that harms us. And we've seen, for the history of the non-Muslim world, or the at least Western world, how these relationships has caused lots of issues. Children are lost as a result of birth out of wedlock, for example. Na'udhu billah, zina, and so forth. How the HIV has been spread because of there's no control over these relationships. Islam came and tried to put a boundary. As today's laws and legislations in the world, in driving you have to drive a certain amount of speed. You have to respect the law of the land, for example. We have this law in today's material world, you know, and we have to respect it. Why do we respect Allah's laws, which is perfect? You know,
that's one of the problems we face in today's world.
So the only way they can actually be in a relationship is through, as I've mentioned before, Aqd al-Nikah, marriage contract, be it short-term or long-term. And of course, if the girl was virgin, she needs the permission of her father for any relationship. So that's the issue as well. So we have to try to observe these laws and ahkam so that we gain the happiness in this world and the hereafter as well. You never know what's going to happen with these, you know, unlawful relationships as a result. Because the haram has no barakah, has no means of, you know, giving that, you know, a great opportunity for the individual to be able to please Allah Azza wa Jal as a result of breaking this Allah's rule by doing the haram.
Okay. We have another question from WhatsApp. It says, is it permissible to eat lobster, crayfish, and snails?
We are not allowed to eat these types of animals or insects or fish, in which the only ones we are allowed, as I mentioned before, for the fish, the one which has scales on the body of the fish, and the prawns is an exception. And we have different types of, let's say, meat and chicken, which are slaughtered according to the Sharia. So in a halal way, slaughtered, we can consume them. So these are the issues.
Okay. We have a question from YouTube. It says, can I brush my teeth while fasting?
One can do so, but they have to make sure that nothing goes inside their throat when they do so in the daytime of the month Ramadan. They have to make sure that nothing goes inside, you know, no particles or liquids goes inside the throat.
Okay. We have another question from YouTube. It says, can I use Quran as my background music or background sound, not music, for studying?
The Quran says when the Quran is recited that keep silence and listen. وَأَنصِتُوا. Try to, if you put in the background, listen to the verses of the Holy Quran, and not just to keep you busy, for example, because that's out of respect, you know, if somebody wants to put something in the background and not to listen. You have to respect the Quran by listening to the words of the Quran as mentioned. But, well, it's better than the music, to be honest. You know.
Indeed,
yeah, indeed.
A lot better. We have another question from WhatsApp. It says, what is the ruling in the matter of the meat or hide of an animal sold by Muslims, especially when it is not known if it was ritually slaughtered?
You see, we have the hukum of suq al-Muslimin, if it's hujjah or not hujjah, that the market of the Muslim is a proof in which when you buy skin or you buy, for example, meat, that if it's from the Muslim market, then it's halal to consume. You know, you bought this skin or this meat from a Muslim market. So you don't have to ask about the origin of this, let's say, meat, because the man who is selling you the meat, the butcher, is a Muslim. So you wouldn't expect for him to sell you meat from, I don't know, a European country, slaughtered in the haram way, for example. So that's suq al-Muslimin as hujjah. When you buy a meat or a skin, you have to consider as zahir and halal.
And over there in the West, sometimes when you go to the local markets, they have some meats sold in non-Muslim markets, but they just have the word halal on it. Should we take that, or should the brothers and sisters over there take that as hujjah for it to be halal, or should they just stay away from it?
If the source was a Muslim source, a Muslim, let's say, slaughterhouse, for example, a company which runs this type of meat and chicken and so forth in containers, for example, or cans, is made by a Muslim company, it should be fine. There's no issue with it, yeah? Even if it's sold in non-Muslim shops.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question from YouTube. It says, is it hypocrisy? Another from a kuffar. I don't...
maybe you can repeat the question.
Okay, we'll skip
Inshallah,
that.
later.
We have another question from WhatsApp. Says, is it permissible to listen to latmiyas while fasting?
There's no connection in terms of being haram or something. Latmiya is just to remember Ahl Bayt's masa'ib. There's no issue with it, no.
Okay. We have a question from YouTube. Says, if we read recommended surahs before going to sleep, is it okay to read them laying down or on the phone or tablets?
As a sign of respect, if one can sit down and read these verses, would be, of course, better.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a question from you, WhatsApp. It says, can a woman do wudu or ghusl without removing her nail polish?
The wudu and the ghusl would be batil if that nail polish remains on the body as an obstacle.
No.
She must remove it and then do the wudu or the ghusl, and then she can pray. Otherwise, the ghusl and the wudu batil, and as a result, the salah would be batil as well without removing this polish, nail polish.
Benny, we have another question. MashaAllah, today the questions are flowing in, MashaAllah. We have another question from WhatsApp. It says, if one wakes up in a state of impurity during Ramadan, will the day have to be repeated?
Not at all. If you, let's say somebody wakes up in the daytime of the month of Ramadan, they had in a state of what, as we call it, wet dream.
Benny.
No, there's no issue at all. Just go to the bathroom, do the ghusl wajib, and continue with your fast to the end of the day. Should be fine.
Thank you very much. There's another question from WhatsApp. It says, is it permissible to listen to religious songs in praise of Ahlul Bayt that are accompanied with music?
As I've said before, ulama differ with this regard. Nowadays we have ulama in which they would divide the music into two segments. You have the entertaining, corruptive music, which is played or used in the nightclubs, for example, in the bars, for example, as we see in some restaurants, for example. They would play that music, singing a song, for example, these lyrics and so forth. That's definitely haram, as a ijma' al-ulama, consensus of the ulama. We have other type of music, which is classical music, which is not used for entertaining or corruptive way. Just the classical music. They would allow this type of music, as of some of the ulama. Others would regard all types of music haram, be it classical or non-classical. So, I mean, the recommended that we try to avoid indulging or applying music within the anashid Islamiyya or Islamic, let's say, latmiya and so forth, or rituals. Try to distance music from these, because always imagine that would the Imam alayhi salam would listen with you if you play this type of
we always have to keep that in mind.
nasheed or noha with music, for example. Think about it.
Okay. We have another question from YouTube. It says, when you pay tax, should you pay zakat as of like a way to get out of zakat?
You see, there's no connection between paying your income tax, for example, or council tax, or whatever tax you want to pay to the government that you live in that country. No connection between paying those taxes and paying your shari'i tax, be it zakat or khumus. Of course, zakat, the wajib zakat, if you have cattle or crops or, big farms, for example, with wheat and so forth, which most of us don't have such issue. But when it comes to the khumus, of course, we have to pay khumus on whatever we gain, ma ghanimtum, from wealth, from assets we haven't used. It's a surplus, excess on our income by the end of the year. Then, of course, wajib to pay khumus. Even if you paid a huge amount of taxes to the government because you had a shop, you paid business tax, for example, business rate, for example, or income tax. That's separate. You still have to pay for any surplus, unused money in your bank account, in your savings, cash in hand, by the end of the year, of course.
Okay. We have another question from YouTube. Says, the stream when I is the stream when I cook break my fast if I smelt it? I think like when they try to taste the food or something like that. And okay, we'll get to the second question.
Yeah,
Thank you. Okay.
yeah. Number one, to smell the food, that wouldn't break the fast. Just to smell the food. To taste it, you have to make sure that it doesn't reach your throat. So
Really?
on the tongue, and then you have to spit it out as a result.
Okay.
That's the issue.
Okay. And the second question from the same person says, should I read the niyyah of fast verbally, or is it wajib, like by heart, or to verbally say the niyyah?
The niyyah, usually in the acts of worship, is actually made inside your mind, in your aql. So you don't have to utter or say it. We have the exception in Hajj, which you have to say, for example, أطوف سبعة أشواط كذا كذا كذا. You have to utter it, say it. The ihram مثلا أحرم كذا كذا. You have to say it. So other than the Hajj, no, you don't have to say it. Just keep it in your mind that tomorrow is the, let's say, first day of the month of Ramadan, and I'm fasting. You make this intention in Sahar, and that's it.
And also in regards to this question, does someone have to repeat the niyyah every single day of the month of Ramadan, or does just the one niyyah on the first night suffice?
You can actually make one main niyyah on the first night for the whole month. That would suffice, inshallah.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a question also from YouTube. It says, my son is fasting for the first time. If he cannot complete the fast and he feels weak, can he break his fast?
Yes, the ulama say that in this case he needs to make it up later as a result, and there's no kafara because it's the first year, just it's first year of bulugh, especially with the little girls, in the age of like 10, 11. Yes, they actually, they can break their fast in terms of to eat or to drink the minimum they can actually. But they have to repeat it afterwards.
Okay, tamam. Thank you very much. We have a question from YouTube. Says, can I buy alcohol to sanitize my hand?
Just before that, the weakness, just to recap on the previous question, that the weakness should not be an excuse to break your fast. It has to be extreme weakness. Sometimes they go, I'm hungry, I want to break my fast. But it has to be in a state in which one is unable to continue their fast as a result, because of being the first year in fasting and so forth. So that's it.
Okay. The question is from YouTube, I repeat, is can I buy alcohol to sanitize my hands?
You see, these najasat has no value in terms of purchase, buying and selling as a result. So the one can actually buy other types of, alcohol. Do you mean by the one which is intoxicating, or normal alcohol? Because we have normal alcohol which is in, like ethanol that we use, for example, to sanitize. That's fine. But the intoxicating one is an issue. That how can you buy, something najis, which has no value in terms of purchase?
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question from YouTube. It says, so we've already asked that one as well. Another question from YouTube says, can I have attractive woman as my private teacher? Like an attractive woman as his private teacher?
You see, whatever leads to haram, iftitan, charm, shahwa, lust and so forth, temptation, that would be of course haram. If you know that you're going to fall into this act of haram, then of course you're not allowed to. Sometimes you're compelled, there's no other teachers, and you try to lower your gaze and not to look with the intention of lust and so forth. So it depends on how strong you are. Can you control yourself? Otherwise, mushkil, it's difficult.
Okay, we have another question from YouTube. It says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Can we use perfumes not for seeking attention of non-maharam, but just for hygienic purposes to avoid the smell of sweat?
Yes, this is, I think, for the sisters. Yes, there's a fatwa by Ayatollah Sistani mentions that if it's not for attracting opposite gender, then they can wear perfume for this purpose. Yes.
If it's not their niyyah, but it's in general it's attractive to non-maharam, does it still have that obligatory sense and she shouldn't put it or
Well, that's the clause or the condition that the marja puts, not
Bani.
to attract opposite gender. That's important.
Bani. Okay. We have a question. Says, how was fasting practiced before the Islamic era and during the Islamic era?
Well, as I've mentioned the ayah before, I think we mentioned this verse just minutes ago. كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم. So previous nations, they had some kind of fast.
No. I believe Christians also and the Jews have type of fasting as well.
Yeah. So for example, what we have that, of course, the month of Ramadan for Muslims is obligatory, and it's from the dawn to dusk, from Fajr to Shar'i Maghrib. That's our fast, wajib fast. When it comes to the fasting of other religions, so let's say in Bible, in the Old and New Testament, something mentioned about fasting. Even in the Hindu book as well, mentioned about fasting. But of course, their fasting is different than us. Let's say in Judaism, they have an annual days for fasting, and one of those days is called Yom Kippur, or the day of mourning, in which they would fast, and they would refrain from eating and drinking for that day. You have the Christians, for example, the Roman Catholics. They have also 40 days of fast. Possibly they would not eat meat and chicken and so forth. It would be a light, let's say light food. Maybe vegetables and so forth.
Okay.
You have the Hinduism. The Hindus also, they have their own fasting as well. They observe some days in the year in which they would avoid, again, let's say meat and fish and so forth. So mainly these are the religions that have fast as well.
We have a question that says, what is prohibited and what should we refrain from engaging in during the month of Ramadan?
So in terms of the muharramat, in which it would basically break one's fast, we have at least 10 to 11 muftarat of the month of Ramadan, in which if somebody intentionally do those things, they would, of course, break their fast. You have number 1 and 2, eating and drinking. So if you eat or drink, that would break your fast intentionally. Regardless of the type of food, it could be rice or bread, or could be mud. Edible, non-edible, it doesn't matter.
Anything
whatever
that
goes through the throat
makes
the siyam batil. You have also, of course, these are all in the daytime of the month, not at night. In the daytime, while you're fasting, between the dawn and the dusk, and Maghrib Shari. You have the marital intercourse between the husband and the wife. If it's performed in the daytime, there is, of course, qada for this act, in which the sawm would be batil. You have something else as well, masturbation, which is by itself haram act, be it in the month of Ramadan or outside the month. Of course, this will also have the kafara as well as a result. To ascribe lies to Allah Azza wa Jal, the Prophet and Ahl Bayt alayhi salam, to say a hadith which is, the Prophet never said it, for example. You say the Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wa, for example, eating such food which is haram, but you say no, the Prophet said it's halal.
I'm really sorry.
That would break the fast in the daytime. Yes?
I'm really sorry, Sheikh. We have a call. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Hello, brother, can you hear me?
I have a question for the Sheikh, and I was wondering. This morning I woke up for Fajr, and before I managed to pray, I felt a bit nauseous and I threw up, and I was wondering if that invalidates my fast.
Benny.
And we're going to come to this muftar. I'm going to mention it when I actually go to the list, finish the list of the muftarat.
Okay.
Ahsantum.
Thank you very much.
The next one is letting thick dust to reach the throat. So if there's a thick dust goes to your throat and you can feel it, that will break your fast as well. Thick dust, thick smoking, for example, shisha, cigarettes, and such like, vape maybe. If it's a thick steam, again, we can come to all these masail one by one, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Immersing one's head inside the water, according to many ulama's opinion, that if you dive with your head inside the water, that would break your fast as well. To remain in the state of janaba, again, from night till fajr time. You're awake, you just ignored washing, you don't want to wash yourself. Of course, when the adhan is called and you're in that state, the sawm will be invalid and batil.
Okay.
Enema, of course, this was in the old days. They used to inject from the lower part of the body towards the stomach some kind of liquid for nutrition, for
any purpose.
Yeah. That would also break the fast. And lastly, the callers mentioned vomiting. Intentional vomiting would break the fast. Intentional. That would break the fast, and not intentional.
Thank you very much. We have another question. Says, are there any other invalidators of fast?
Yes, we can add number 11 to this list. Again, while somebody is fasting in the daytime for the month of Ramadan, and they make this intention, because it's too hot, for example, they're hungry, that I'm going to break my fast. I'm going to go and drink a cup of water. So they go to the fridge, open the fridge, with the intention of breaking the fast. But they regret, oh, no, astaghfirullah, I'm not going to do it. This intention for breaking the fast would also make the fast invalid and batil. So they have to make it up later after the month of Ramadan. Because they broke this intention connection. Because the ibadah is connection of the intention from dawn to dusk. They broke it with this intention. We're going to break the fast intentionally. So that's why they have to repeat the fast.
And would kafara be obligatory on him?
Some of these don't have kafara. Yes, without kafara. Some of these.
Okay. We have another question. It says, what is the kafara penalty for not fasting?
For not fasting the month of Ramadan, there are two types of kafara. Number one is to fast 2 months consecutively, so continuous fasting for 2 months. صيام شهرين متتابعين. And the second one is to feed 60 poor individuals, إطعام 60 مسكين. So sometimes they give you the option either to feed or to fast. So you make the option in terms of which is easier for you. For example, I can just pay 60 people to feed them, rather than fasting 2 consecutive months. Of course, in the old days, there's another kafara, which is to free slaves. We don't have in this era
this time. There's no
exactly.
slaves, alhamdulillah.
And as I've said before, Islam made lots of encouragements to free humanity from slavery, alhamdulillah. And that was the result of these ahkams of Islam, in which made the human free in this world and not to be slaves of others.
We have another call. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, your sister.
I'm good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you very much. Ramadan Mubarak to you. And inshallah, you can ask your question to the dear Sheikh, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Ramadan Mubarak to you too. My question is, I've heard that you can't brush your teeth when you're fasting. Is that true?
Basically, if you are sure that nothing would go through your throat, then of course you can actually brush. But of course there are recommendations that make sure you do it in the night, in the sahar time, after suhoor. Try to avoid it, but if you can, I mean, I can do it myself, for example. I can control it, but maybe others can't. So, the safe side to do it in the sahar time after having the suhoor, brush your teeth and then go to sleep, or after salah and so forth. That's the safe side, of course.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you for answering
You're
the
welcome.
question.
You're welcome.
Take
Thank you
care.
very much.
Ma'as-salam.
Salam.
We have another question. Says, what are the types? And I believe this is our last question. It says, what are the types of ruling with regards to fasting in general?
We have 4 types of ruling when it comes to the Shari'i fasting. We have the forbidden fast, we have the wajib fast, obligatory fast, we have the makruh fast, and the desirable or mustahab fast. So the haram fast, or the let's say the obligatory, the forbidden fast, is to fast on the Eid of Fitr and Eid al-Adha. These 2 Eids you're not allowed to fast. Even if you say, I do it for the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal, to celebrate, you are not allowed to fast on these 2 Eid days, Adha and Fitr. So that's the haram or forbidden types of fasting. The other one is the wajib fast, which is the holy month of Ramadan, definitely. And any qada fast, of course, you have to make up before the next month of Ramadan. That's wajib as well, to fulfill all your qada just before the end of Sha'ban of next year, for example. If you couldn't fast this year's month of Ramadan. You have the makruh, or the discouraged fasting, and that's the day of Ashura. Unlike some other sects of Islam, they encourage to fast on this day as mustahab. So, no, it's makruh. Yes, you can refrain from eating and drinking till the afternoon time, after Salat al-Dhuhr, and have some water and dates, for example. But don't fast it with this intention. It's makruh and discouraged. And you have the mustahab fast, various occasions, mustahab fast of Sha'ban and Rajab, for example, which is great opportunity for the one to prepare himself for herself for the month of Ramadan.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Sheikh. Dear brothers, for the upcoming season of Ahkam SOS, live from the holy city of Karbala. Thank you very much for tuning in. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Our society is rampant with corruption.
Immorality is spreading far and wide.
We are battling with ideologies we've never heard of.
You want to stop your children from wavering from the path?
You want to fight back against deviation and impurity?
You want to see light overtake the darkness.
You want to witness our communities thriving.
We are in need of a voice.
To pioneer a spiritual revolution.
To be the access for moral guidance and direction.
Become an ambassador.
Instigate change.
Allow the values of our faith to prevail.
Propagate the teachings of Muhammad and his holy progeny, peace be upon them.
Do what you can to keep the message alive.
This holy month of Ramadan,
Don't miss your opportunity to make a pledge.
to ensure the message reaches the next generation.
Tune into Imam Hussein TV 3.
Every Friday from 8:30 to 10:30 p.m.
After iftar.
Only on Imam Hussein TV.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Dearest brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.